On the wildest night in a decade, as thunder rattled the windows of his lonely farmhouse, single dad Ben Carter heard a desperate knock at the door. On his porch stood a rain-soaked, shivering girl, no name, no memory, just fear in her eyes. Ben, still grieving his wife and struggling to raise his young son, made a choice that would change everything. He took her in. Years later, the girl now called Lily had become part of the family and the heart of their small town. But when a stranger arrived, searching for someone lost long ago, the truth about Lily's past would shake the town to its core. Before we dive into this unforgettable journey of love, secrets, and redemption, tell us where you're reading from. If you love stories of hope and second chances, hit that subscribe button. Tomorrow's story is one you won't want to miss. The wind had never howled like this in Harper's Hollow. Rain lashed the battered siding of Ben Carter's farmhouse, the world outside reduced to a blur of trembling shadows and silver sheets. Each thunderclap rattled the windows, setting Ben's nerves on edge as he settled his 8-year-old son Jamie into bed. "It's just noise, kiddo. Nothing out there but the wind," he murmured, brushing a damp curl from Jamie's forehead. But even as he reassured his son, the storm's fury seeped through every seam and floorboard. Ben paused in the hallway, listening to the groaning rafters and the distant plaintive cry of a barn owl. Since the accident that took his wife, these nights were the hardest long, lonely vigils at a kitchen table, scattered with bills and unanswered letters. He poured a mug of coffee, the old farmhouse clock ticking off the seconds in the hush between storms. Then, at 11:14 p.m., a frantic knocking shattered the fragile quiet. Ben froze. Out here, a visitor at this hour usually meant trouble. He set down his mug, heart hammering, and crept to the door, grabbing the baseball bat he kept by the umbrella stand. Another knock, urgent this time, almost desperate. With a deep breath, Ben flicked on the porch light and opened the door a cautious crack. Rain swept in, and with it the sight of a small, figure-soaked, shivering shoes caked in mud. For a split second, the stranger seemed impossibly young, a girl of maybe 12, arms wrapped around herself, hair plastered to her cheeks. "Please," she whispered. Her voice trembled, more with fear than cold. "Can I come in?" Ben hesitated, the storm howling at his back. Every instinct warred with itself, caution, compassion, the memory of his wife's gentle conviction. If someone needs help, you help them. He opened the door wider. The girl flinched as thunder crashed overhead, her wide eyes darting back to the darkness. Ben stepped aside. "Come on, you'll catch your death out there," he said, his tone softer than he intended. She stepped inside, leaving a trail of muddy prints across the faded rug. Ben grabbed an old blanket from the coat rack and draped it around her thin shoulders. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She shook her head, silent. Her gaze darted around the kitchen, at the fridge covered in Jamie's drawings, the stack of mail, the half-finished puzzle on the table. Ben noticed a thin chain around her neck, a small pendant shaped like a feather, glinting in the light. He crouched to her level. "You lost?" he tried. Still nothing. He offered cocoa, which she accepted with silent gratitude, hands trembling as she wrapped them around the mug. Ben called the local sheriff, but the storm had knocked out the lines. Cell service was dead, roads likely washed out. They were alone, at least for the night. When Jamie tiptoed in, rubbing sleep from his eyes, he stopped short at the sight of the girl. "Who's that?" he whispered. Ben just shook his head. "A friend who needs a safe place tonight." The girl watched them both, eyes shadowed with exhaustion and something else, fear, maybe, or a secret too heavy for words. As Ben tucked Jamie back into bed, he heard the girl's quiet voice from the doorway. "Lily," she whispered, almost as if she'd surprised herself. "My name is Lily." Ben nodded, a promise forming between them in the hush after the storm. He didn't know who she was or what had driven her to his door, but he knew this: everything was about to change. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside, a new story had just begun. The storm passed, leaving the world washed and brittle under a grey dawn. Ben found the kitchen window fogged with his own breath as he watched the rainwater carve little rivers through the muddy yard. He brewed coffee, his hand steady from habit, though his mind spun with questions. Who was the girl Lily, she had murmured, who now slept in his spare room? What had brought her alone to his door in the dead of night? Jamie was the first to stir, padding barefoot down the hallway with the unquestioning resilience of childhood. "Did she leave?" he whispered, peering into the guest room. Ben shook his head, ruffling his son's hair. "She's still here. We need to make her feel safe." He didn't add what he was really thinking. "We need to find out where she belongs." Lily awoke slowly, blinking at the unfamiliar ceiling and the soft quilt tucked around her. She flinched at Ben's gentle knock, but relaxed when she saw Jamie, whose shy smile seemed to cut through her fear. "You hungry?" Ben asked, keeping his voice soft. She nodded, her gaze never leaving the window, as if she expected something to come for her. Breakfast was an awkward ritual. Lily ate in silence, but Jamie filled the air with chatter about school, cows, and the creek that ran through their property. She listened, a faint smile tugging at her lips when he made a joke about the rooster that crowed at midnight. It was the first time Ben saw a glimmer of the child she might have been before the storm. By mid-morning, Ben called Sheriff Harlan. The storm had knocked out the main roads, but the deputy arrived in a battered cruiser, his boots leaving muddy prints on the porch. Lily shrank behind Ben's broad frame as Harlan asked gentle, practiced questions: her name, where she came from, if she remembered anything about her family. She shook her head, silent except for that one word, Lily. "No reports of a missing child match her description," Harlan said quietly, glancing at Ben. "We'll put out word to the neighboring counties, check the database. But storms like last night bring out all kinds of trouble. You sure you're okay keeping her here until we know more?" Ben nodded, the decision already made in his heart. She can stay as long as she needs. The neighbors found out within the hour. News traveled fast in Willow Creek. Mrs. McAllister arrived with a casserole and a barrage of questions thinly disguised as concern. "Poor thing," she murmured, eyeing Lily's muddy shoes and the pendant around her neck. "Doesn't she speak?" Ben was protective, deflecting with a smile. "She's had a rough night, that's all." The town's small school welcomed Lily with cautious curiosity. Ben filled out the forms himself, listing her as a ward for the time being. Principal Dupree, a kindly woman with a steel backbone, promised to keep an eye on her. Jamie took Lily's hand as they walked to class, whispering secrets that made her giggle. It was more than friendship. It was a lifeline. At home, Ben juggled chores and fatherhood. He set up a cot in Jamie's room, just in case Lily was afraid to sleep alone. He found her humming softly to herself, plucking hesitant notes on the old piano in the living room. The melody was unfamiliar, haunting, and something about it made Ben's chest tighten. "That's beautiful," he said, voice rough. She looked startled, then smiled, shy and proud. Nights were harder. Lily woke gasping from nightmares, her eyes wide and wild, as if she saw something terrible just beyond the edge of memory. Ben would sit by her bed until she calmed, offering reassurances he wasn't sure he believed. Sometimes she spoke in her sleep fragments of another life, names that faded with the morning sun. As the days passed, Lily's presence changed the rhythm of the house. Jamie became her shadow, showing her the secret places in the woods and teaching her to skip stones. Ben found himself looking forward to her laughter, her quiet resilience, the way she brought light into rooms that had long felt empty. Yet beneath the surface, questions lingered. Who was she really? Why did no one claim her? And what was she running from? One evening, as Ben tucked Jamie and Lily into bed, he noticed the pendant she wore, a delicate silver feather, oddly out of place with her worn clothes. "That's a pretty necklace," he said gently. Lily's hand flew to her throat, her expression darkening. "It's all I have," she whispered. For a moment Ben saw a flicker of something, fear maybe, or sorrow, before she turned away. That night, Lily's nightmares returned with new ferocity. Ben woke to her cries, finding her tangled in the sheets, sobbing for a woman named Rose. "Don't let them take me," she pleaded, still half-dreaming. "Don't let them find me." Ben soothed her, promising safety. But in the darkness, doubt gnawed at him. Who was searching for her, and why was she so afraid of being found? Outside, an engine rumbled down the empty country road, headlights pausing at the edge of the Carter property before disappearing into the night. A storm had brought Lily to his door. Now, as the first real peace settled over the farmhouse, Ben sensed another storm quieter, more dangerous gathering on the horizon. The weeks that followed blurred into a gentle rhythm, the kind that settles into a house like the ticking of an old clock. Each morning, the Carter farmhouse woke to the quiet chaos of breakfast, Jamie's sleepy protests, and Lily's silent, watchful presence at the table. She was still a guest in the spare room, but her toothbrush stood next to Jamie's on the sink, and her coat hung on the peg by the back door. At first, Ben kept a distance born of caution, unsure how to care for a child with no memory, no ties, and a sadness in her eyes deeper than anything he'd ever seen. But Lily's small, wordless acts began to draw him in. She folded laundry without being asked, left wildflowers on the kitchen windowsill, and at night could sometimes be heard humming the same melody she'd played on the piano. When Jamie fell and scraped his knee, it was Lily who found the bandages, her hands steady as she patched him up with the quiet confidence of someone who'd done it before. The town watched, curious and divided. Some neighbors brought casseroles and warm bread, hoping to coax a story from the mysterious girl. Others muttered about secrets and trouble, warning Ben to be careful. But the children at school were less suspicious. Jamie, fiercely protective, introduced Lily to his friends as his almost sister. She was shy, awkward with games and group work, but she listened well and remembered everyone's name. In the evenings after homework and chores, Ben read aloud from battered storybooks. Lily always sat nearest the lamp, knees drawn to her chest, her eyes reflecting the flicker of the flame. Sometimes Ben caught her mouthing the words, as if searching for something lost. Jamie would fall asleep mid-chapter, and Ben would carry him to bed, the old house creaking underfoot. Lily's nightmares receded but never vanished. Some nights, Ben would hear her crying out, tangled in sweat-soaked sheets. He'd sit beside her in the darkness, unsure what to say, offering only his presence and a steady hand. In those quiet hours, Something unspoken grew between them, a trust born not of answers, but of shared loneliness.
One Saturday, the three of them went to the farmer's market. Ben watched as Lily lingered by the music tent, where a local fiddler played reels and jigs. Without warning, she picked up a battered violin and joined in, her bow tentative at first, then bold, her face alight with a joy Ben had never seen. The crowd fell silent, then erupted in applause. Afterward, the fiddler pressed a candy into her hand and called her an old soul. Ben saw tears in her eyes, not sadness, but a kind of relief. Jamie, emboldened by Lily's applause, dragged her to the creek afterward, where they built a dam from stones and old branches. Ben watched them from the bank, his heart aching with gratitude and fear. He knew that moments like these were fragile, built on trust, but threatened by every unanswered question about Lily's origins. Still, the Carter home changed. Lily's laughter, rare but bright, filled the kitchen. She and Jamie invented secret handshakes, built pillow forts, and drew maps of imaginary lands. Ben taught Lily to cook first simple things, then more complicated recipes. She learned fast, her hands deft and precise, her eyes shining with pride when Ben praised her efforts. As autumn deepened, Lily grew bolder. She joined Jamie on the school bus, holding his hand on the walk to the stop. She helped Ben muck out the barn, never flinching at mud or mess. She even began to speak more short sentences at first, then stories, fragments of memory surfacing like driftwood after a storm. One rainy afternoon, as wind rattled the windows, Lily found Ben in the attic looking for old winter coats. She held out a faded photograph. She'd found a picture of Ben, Jamie, and his late wife Sarah, smiling on a summer day. "She was beautiful," Lily said softly. Ben nodded, surprised by the ache in his chest. "She would have liked you," he replied, meaning it. Later that week, Ben met with the county social worker. The investigation into Lily's identity had gone nowhere. No matches to missing children, no family stepping forward. "She's adjusting well," the social worker said, glancing at her notes. "You're doing a good job, Ben. But you know if someone claims her, you'll have to let her go." That night, Ben sat on the porch wrestling with guilt and hope. He knew he was growing attached, knew, too, that Lily was letting herself hope for a real home. Jamie joined him, clutching a battered stuffed bear. "Dad, do you think Lily will stay forever?" Ben hesitated, then pulled Jamie close. "We'll do everything we can, kiddo. But sometimes we don't get to choose." Halloween arrived and Lily wore a homemade fairy costume. The three of them went trick-or-treating, Ben trailing behind as Jamie and Lily darted from house to house. At one porch, an old woman peered at Lily and said, "You've got her eyes, you know. You remind me of someone, long ago." Lily froze, her hand tightening on her candy bag. Ben knelt beside her, whispering reassurance. But the moment lingered, a shadow at the edge of the night. As the first frost glazed the fields, Ben made an appointment with a lawyer. He wanted to begin the adoption process, if only to give Lily a sense of security. "It won't be easy," the lawyer warned. "Not without a birth certificate or family history, but you have a good case. She's thriving here." The days shortened and the air sharpened. One evening, as Ben tucked Lily in, she looked up at him and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." Ben felt tears prick his eyes. "You're family now, Lily. We're in this together." That night, as the house settled into quiet, headlights swept across the yard. Someone pausing on the road, watching the farmhouse before driving on. Ben stood at the window, unease prickling his skin. In the darkness, Lily stirred, clutching her feather pendant, as if she too sensed the past drawing near. A family was being built, strong and fragile all at once. But the world outside was beginning to remember Lily, and would not leave them in peace for long. The Carter house felt fuller now, laughter echoing down the halls and muddy boots lined up by the door. But as autumn gave way to winter, so too did the shadow of uncertainty creep back into their lives. It started with the arrival of a stranger in Willow Creek, a man whose polished shoes and pressed suit seemed at odds with the battered pickup he drove. He asked questions at the diner about a girl named Lily, about children found after storms. The waitress, Mrs. Parker, called Ben that night, concern etched in her voice. "He's not from around here, Ben. He's asking about Lily by name." Ben's heart hammered. For months, he'd hoped the world had forgotten the girl who'd come to him that stormy night. Now the past was circling, patient and methodical. The stranger introduced himself at the school as Mr. Harris, a private investigator. He showed Principal Dupree a photograph. A young girl, hair lighter and longer, but with the same haunted eyes as Lily. "Have you seen her?" he asked. "Her family's been searching for years." Word spread quickly. Some townsfolk welcomed the idea of answers. Others eyed Lily with new suspicion. Jamie grew fiercely protective, shadowing her every step. Ben tried to shield them both, answering questions, deflecting rumors, but a restlessness gnawed at him. Was he protecting Lily or keeping her from truths she deserved to know? One evening, Ben called Lily to the porch, where the last streaks of sunset painted the fields gold. "There's a man in town looking for you," he said gently. She sat beside him, clutching her knees to her chest, the silver feather pendant glinting against her skin. "He says you have family, real family, who miss you."
Lily was silent for a long time. Finally, in a trembling voice, she said, "I don't remember them, Ben. Not really. Sometimes I see flashes, people screaming, a big house, someone calling my name, but it feels like a nightmare." Ben squeezed her hand. "You don't have to talk to him unless you want to." But even as he spoke, he wondered if he was making the right choice. The next day, Mr. Harris approached Ben outside the hardware store. "I don't mean to cause trouble," Harris said, voice low and earnest, "but the girl you call Lily matches the age and scar of a missing child, Elizabeth Rowan. Her grandmother's dying wish is to see her again." Ben's breath caught. He'd heard the Rowan name old money, powerful, with rumors of tragedy. Still, he hesitated. "Lily's happy here. She's family." Harris nodded, not unkindly. "But she had a life before you. A family who never stopped searching." That night, Lily had a nightmare more vivid than ever. She woke sobbing, clutching her pendant, and called for Ben. "I remember a woman, a fire someone shouting my name. I ran. I was so scared." Ben knelt beside her, brushing damp hair from her face. "You're safe now," he whispered, but the words felt thin, brittle. At school, Lily's classmates began to whisper. Some said she was a runaway, others a lost heiress. One girl, emboldened by the rumors, sneered, "Maybe your real family didn't want you." Jamie shoved the girl, earning detention, but Lily just stared at her desk, silent tears slipping down her cheeks. The tension in town grew. The sheriff stopped by, asking for paperwork Ben didn't have. Mrs. McAllister from next door offered to take Lily off your hands just until things settle. Ben bristled, hugging Lily fiercely that night. "This is your home. No one's taking you anywhere." But even Jamie sensed the change. "Are they going to make her leave, Dad?" he asked. Ben didn't have an answer. One afternoon, as Ben worked in the barn, he heard the front door slam and Lily's footsteps pounding down the driveway. He found her sitting by the creek, knees hugged to her chest, eyes red. "I heard you talking to Mr. Harris," she said, voice shaking. "He says I have a family somewhere else. Do you think I should go?" Ben sat beside her, feeling the weight of every choice he'd made since that stormy night. "Lily, I can't tell you what to do. I just know I love you like my own. You're my family, no matter what your name was before." Lily leaned into him, tears soaking his shirt. "I don't want to leave, but I want to remember. I want to know who I am." That night, Ben called Harris and agreed to a meeting. They gathered at the kitchen table, Ben, Lily, Jamie, and the investigator. Harris set down a faded photograph and a file. "This is everything we know," he said, sliding it to Lily. She studied the photo with trembling hands. The girl in the image had her eyes, her scar, even the same feather pendant. Harris explained, "You disappeared after a house fire. The police thought maybe you were taken or lost. Your mother died that night. Your grandmother has never stopped looking." Lily's face crumpled. "I remember the fire. I remember running, but I don't remember them." Harris's voice softened. "You don't have to decide anything now, but your grandmother, she's very sick. She wants to see you, just once." Ben watched Lily wrestle with the truth, her knuckles white around her pendant. Jamie reached for her hand, silent solidarity. The next day, Lily didn't come home from school. Ben's heart nearly stopped when he saw her empty seat at the dinner table. He called friends, searched the woods, asked at every house. Nothing. Finally, just before midnight, he found her at the edge of the old Rowan estate, staring at the iron gates through the mist. "I need to know, Ben," she whispered. "I need to see for myself." Ben wrapped his coat around her and led her home, the moonlight glinting off the feather at her throat. But as they walked, he sensed that whatever happened next, their family and their whole town was about to be changed forever. The first snow of the season began to fall as Ben realized the house was too quiet. He called up the stairs, voice echoing through empty rooms. "Lily? Jamie?" Only Jamie answered, appearing at the top of the landing, eyes wide and worried. "She's not in her room," Jamie said, clutching his battered backpack. "I checked outside too. Her boots are gone." Ben's heart thudded. Fear prickled at the back of his neck, the kind that comes from knowing something is deeply, irrevocably wrong. He grabbed his coat and scanned the kitchen table. Lily's feather pendant was missing. She'd never left without it. He tried to steady himself, not wanting to alarm Jamie, but the boy saw right through him. "You think she ran away?" Jamie's voice was small. Ben knelt, hands on his son's shoulders. "We don't know that, but we're going to find her, okay? We always do." He called the sheriff, his voice tight. Within the hour, word spread across Willow Creek. The search grew quickly. Neighbors, teachers, even the old men from the feed store joined in. Flashlights bobbed through the woods. Voices called Lily's name against the hush of falling snow. Ben's mind raced with worst-case scenarios. The stranger in town, the old estate, the river swollen with winter runoff. But under the panic, a single thought pulsed. Why would Lily leave now? Meanwhile, Lily trudged through the woods, her breath forming little clouds in the air. The world felt muffled and distant, the snow swallowing every sound. She clutched the feather pendant beneath her coat, the only piece of her old life she'd kept. Every step away from Ben's house felt heavier, but she couldn't turn back. Not yet. She needed answers, to remember who she was before the storm. Memories flickered in her mind. A burning house, a woman's voice, running until her lungs ached. She followed an old deer path, half remembered from walks with Jamie, until she reached the edge of the Rowan estate. The iron gates loomed ahead, black against the pale snow. Lily hesitated, her heart pounding. She remembered flashes, shouting, fire, someone screaming her name. "Elizabeth!" The memory made her stumble. Was that who she truly was? Back in town, Ben coordinated with Sheriff Harlan. They split into search parties, scouring the creek, the abandoned orchard, the roads leading north and south. Jamie insisted on joining, refusing to be left behind. She wouldn't run unless she was scared, he told his dad, tears freezing on his cheeks, or unless she thought she had to. The private investigator, Harris, heard the news at the inn and joined the search, his own sense of urgency sharpened by guilt. He'd come to town for answers, but now he wondered if he was chasing a ghost or if his presence had driven Lily away.
Hours passed.
The sun slipped behind the hills, the temperature dropping. At the Rowan estate, Lily pressed her palm against the iron gate. She could see the darkened house beyond, windows glowing faintly. She remembered the sound of breaking glass, the smell of smoke, a woman's arms pulling her close. A name bubbled up. Rose. Her mother. Her aunt? She didn't know. A light flicked on in an upstairs window. Lily ducked behind a tree, heart racing. She wanted to go back, to run home to Ben and Jamie, to safety and warmth. But something in her wouldn't let her turn away. She needed to know the truth. Back at the Carter house, the phone rang. A neighbor had spotted a girl near the old Rowan estate. Ben and Jamie raced through the night, headlights sweeping over frozen fields. Harris met them at the gates, flashlight in hand. "She's inside," Harris said, breathless. "I saw her go in." Ben didn't wait. He vaulted the gate, Jamie at his heels. They searched the grounds, calling Lily's name. At last, they found her on the back porch, sitting in the snow, arms wrapped around her knees. Ben knelt beside her, relief and fear warring in his chest. "Lily, why did you leave?" She looked up, eyes shining with tears. "I had to remember. I had to see if I belonged here, or if I was just someone you rescued from a storm." Ben pulled her close, holding her as the snow swirled around them. "You belong with us, no matter what your name was before." Harris approached, voice gentle. "Lily Elizabeth, your grandmother is inside. She's been waiting a long time to see you. You don't have to go in if you're not ready, but you deserve answers." Lily nodded, standing on shaky legs. Jamie slipped his hand into hers. Together, the four of them walked into the grand, silent house. In the parlor, an old woman sat by the fire, a photograph on her lap, a photo of a little girl with a feather pendant. The woman looked up. For a moment the world seemed to hold its breath. "Elizabeth?" she whispered. Lily stared, her memories swirling. Was she Elizabeth Rowan, or was she Lily Carter now? The answer hung in the air, shimmering and uncertain as the firelight danced across the room. Outside, snow continued to fall, erasing footprints and blurring the path home. Would Lily reclaim her old life, or choose the family she'd made in the storm's aftermath? The truth, when it came, would change everything for her, Ben, and the town. The living room was heavy with silence as Ben and Lily sat side by side, the old photograph of a little girl with a feather pendant lying between them. The visit to the Rowan estate had left them both shaken. Lily by the faces and voices that felt like ghosts in her mind. Ben by the realization that the world beyond Willow Creek was finally closing in. The next morning, a convoy of unfamiliar cars rolled into town. News spread like wildfire. The Rowan family, wealthy, distant, and powerful, had arrived, accompanied by lawyers, a social worker, and a physician. They took rooms at the inn, their presence sending a ripple of unease through the community. Lily's story, once a whispered mystery, was now headline news. Reporters prowled the streets, cameras flashing, eager for a glimpse of the lost heiress whose face now adorned every local paper. The Rowans requested a meeting. Ben was wary, but Lily, gripping her feather pendant for courage, agreed. In the inn's parlour, she faced a fragile woman in a wheelchair, her grandmother, Eleanor Rowan, eyes watery with hope and grief. "Elizabeth?" the old woman whispered, reaching out a trembling hand. Lily hesitated, searching the woman's face, feeling a tug at something deep inside her. A memory surfaced, a lullaby, a gentle hand smoothing her hair. Tears filled Lily's eyes, but still she could not remember enough to call her grandma. Eleanor pressed a faded handkerchief into Lily's palm. "You're safe now. You're home." The words, meant as comfort, only deepened the ache in Lily's chest. The meetings that followed blurred together, lawyers discussing custody, doctors running tests, social workers probing Lily with gentle, relentless questions. Through it all, Ben stood as steady as a mountain, but Lily saw the storm in his eyes. Jamie reacted with confusion and anger, clinging to Lily and lashing out at anyone who tried to separate them. The Rowans, for all their wealth, seemed lost in their own ways. Lily's room at the inn was filled with expensive toys and clothes, but none of it felt real. She missed the farmhouse, the smell of pancakes in the morning, Jamie's laughter, even the way Ben always checked the locks twice before bed. Her heart was torn in two. Soon the legal battle began. The Rowans' lawyers filed for immediate custody. The state launched an investigation into Ben's guardianship. The town was divided. Some neighbors whispered that Ben had no right to keep another man's child, while others, remembering Lily's kindness, rallied to his side, signing petitions and offering statements of support. The courtroom was packed on the day of the hearing. Lily sat between two worlds, the Rowans on one side, Ben and Jamie on the other. The judge, a stern woman with kind eyes, listened as lawyers argued over blood and bonds, rights and responsibilities. Lily was called to testify. Her voice quivered as she spoke. "I don't remember everything, but I remember Ben holding my hand in the storm. I remember Jamie making me laugh when I thought I'd forgotten how. The Rowans. They're my family too. But so are the Carters. I just want to be safe. I just want to belong." The judge took the matter under advisement. Lily was sent to live with the Rowans while the case was decided, but she was allowed to visit Ben and Jamie under supervision. The separation was agony. At the Rowan estate, Lily was surrounded by every comfort, but she felt imprisoned by unfamiliar routines and constant supervision. Her bedroom was beautiful but cold. The voices in the halls were polite but distant. At night, she dreamed of the farmhouse, Ben's steady voice, Jamie's jokes, the warmth of belonging. Meanwhile, Ben was adrift. The house felt empty, Jamie's grief spilling over into anger and silence. Ben did his best to keep hope alive, but each day without Lily felt like a piece of his heart had been carved away. He fought the urge to drive to the Rowan estate and demand her return, knowing it would only hurt her case. Lily's life with the Rowans was a study in contrasts. She attended private lessons, wore new clothes, ate at a long table with silver cutlery. Her grandmother, Eleanor, doted on her, but the rest of the family seemed to treat her like a porcelain doll, something precious but fragile and strange. Her uncle, Charles, watched her with cold calculation. Lily overheard him arguing with Eleanor one night. "She's not the girl we lost. She belongs with those people, not us." Eleanor's reply was muffled, but her sadness filled the halls. The only respite came from the family's housekeeper, Mrs. Dobson, who brought Lily cocoa at night and whispered stories about her mother. From her, Lily learned that her mother, Rose, had tried to escape the suffocating control of the family years before. "You're more like her than you know," Mrs. Dobson said softly. She had a spirit that couldn't be tamed. One stormy night, unable to sleep, Lily wandered the halls and overheard Charles on the phone. "The estate's nearly bankrupt. If we can prove the girl is unfit, we keep the trust. If not, everything goes to her." The words chilled her to the core. She realized suddenly that her presence was as much a threat as a blessing. Fear twisted in her stomach. She had to choose accept the family's cold embrace for the sake of security, or fight for the home she truly wanted. Her mind made up, Lily snuck out the next day and made her way to the farmhouse. She found Ben and Jamie in the kitchen, the three of them collapsing into a tangle of hugs and tears. "I don't want their money," Lily sobbed. "I just want to come home, but they won't let me unless I fight." Ben knelt and held her close. "Then we fight, whatever it takes." Word of Lily's defiance spread quickly. The town, galvanized by her courage, rallied behind the Carters. Letters poured into the judge. Neighbors volunteered to testify about Ben's care and Lily's happiness. Even Mrs. Dobson appeared in court, breaking her silence to reveal the truth about the Rowans' motives and the threats Lily faced living there. The final hearing was tense and emotional. The judge listened carefully to every word. When it was over, she spoke directly to Lily. "Family isn't just about blood. It's about love, safety, and belonging. I believe your home is with the Carters." Cheers erupted in the courtroom. Lily wept with relief. Ben hugged her, whispering, "You're ours, forever." But as they left the courthouse, the Rowan family's lawyer approached. "There's one last thing," she said, handing Ben a letter. "It's from Eleanor. She's leaving everything her share of the estate, the trust for Lily. She hopes you'll use it to help the town." Back at the farmhouse, the family celebrated with pancakes and laughter. Jamie slipped the feather pendant around Lily's neck. "You're not lost anymore," he said. And Lily, for the first time, believed it. That night, as stars spilled across the sky, Ben watched Lily and Jamie chase fireflies in the yard. The town, once divided by suspicion and fear, now rallied together, not just for Lily, but for every lost soul who needed a home. The truth had brought pain and struggle, but it had also brought healing, hope, and a family made stronger by the storms they'd survived. Still, as the wind whispered through the trees, Ben couldn't shake the feeling that the past was not quite finished with them. There were more secrets to uncover, more hearts to heal. But for now, their family was whole, and that was enough. The days after the courtroom decision were supposed to be peaceful, but for Lily, restlessness grew like a storm on the horizon. The judge's ruling granting her the choice to stay with the Carters or return to the Rowans had been made with compassion, but it left Lily adrift between two identities. The town buzzed with opinions, the media lingered, and her own heart split between the world she'd found and the one she'd forgotten. At the Rowan estate, everything was polished and orderly. The halls echoed with soft footsteps and hushed voices. Eleanor, her grandmother, tried to fill the empty spaces with tea, gentle questions, and stories of Lily's mother Rose, the woman Lily saw only in fractured dreams. But the warmth was forced, filtered through years of grief and the brittle pride of old money. Each morning a black car took Lily to private tutors, etiquette classes, and therapy sessions. She wore new clothes, answered to Elizabeth, and practiced a smile that felt like a mask. At night, she lay awake in a room bigger than Ben's whole house, tracing the outline of her feather pendant against her chest, longing for the creak of the farmhouse stairs, the sound of Jamie's laughter, the simple comfort of pancakes and hand-me-down pajamas. The Rowan staff treated her with deference, never cruelty, but never affection either. She was an heir, a symbol, a solution to legal problems and a hope for the future. Her Uncle Charles, sharp-eyed and distant, watched her as if waiting for her to break the illusion. "You'll adjust, Elizabeth," he said one evening, not unkindly. "It just takes time." Lily nodded, but inside she felt like a visitor in her own skin. Her only relief came with the weekly visits to the Carters. For a few precious hours, she shed the weight of expectation. Ben always arrived early, Jamie clutching a new comic book or a wildflower bouquet. They sat in the park, played cards, and talked about everything and nothing. Ben never pushed, never asked her to decide. He just listened, steady as ever, his presence a lifeline in the storm. One chilly afternoon, Lily asked Ben, "How did you know you wanted to stay here after everything changed?" Ben thought for a long moment. "You don't always know, Lil. Sometimes you just wake up one morning and realize you've already chosen. It's the place where you hurt and heal and hope again. That's home." Jamie was less patient. "I miss you," he said, voice trembling. "Why can't you just come home now?" Lily hugged him, wishing she could explain the ache of divided loyalties. She loved Jamie fiercely, loved Ben for his quiet strength, but the Rowans were her blood, her history fragments of a life she was supposed to reclaim. That night, a storm rolled in, thunder rattling the windows of the Rowan estate. Lily wandered the halls, drawn by a half-remembered melody. She found Eleanor in the parlour, weeping over a faded photograph her daughter Rose, smiling with a baby in her arms. "I lost her, you know," Eleanor whispered. "I lost you both. Don't make me lose you again." The words pierced Lily's heart, guilt and love warring inside her. Days blurred. The media's attention faded, but the town's curiosity did not. At school, whispers followed Lily, pity from some, envy from others. The Carters' farmhouse felt further away with every passing week. Then, one evening, Lily overheard a heated argument between Charles and Eleanor. "She's not ready, Mother. She doesn't know our world, our rules. If she stays, she'll ruin everything we've rebuilt." Eleanor's reply was quiet, fierce. "She's not here to save our name, Charles. She's here because she's family." Lily fled to the garden, rain soaking her hair, confusion and anger swirling. She sat on the cold stone bench, feather pendant clutched tight, and let herself cry for the first time since the trial. She cried for Rose, for Ben and Jamie, for Eleanor and for herself, a girl lost in a storm, still searching for safe harbor. Meanwhile, at the Carter farmhouse, Ben and Jamie tried to keep their routines. Ben fixed fences, cooked dinners, and waited for the phone to ring. Jamie drew pictures of the three of them, always together, always smiling. The ache of Lily's absence was a hole in the heart of their home. One night, Ben found Jamie in tears. "What if she never comes back, Dad?" Ben pulled him close. "We love her, kiddo. That's all we can do. The rest is up to her." The breaking point came quietly. At a charity gala, Lily was introduced as Elizabeth Rowan, the lost heiress, the miracle return. Cameras flashed, strangers shook her hand, and Charles delivered a speech about family, legacy, and new beginnings. Lily felt herself fading, disappearing behind the smile she'd practiced so well. Afterwards, Eleanor found her outside, shivering on the terrace. "You don't have to stay, Lily. You never did. I just wanted you to know you were wanted." Lily's tears fell silently. "I want to be wanted, but I want to be me." Eleanor pressed the feather pendant into her palm. "You're your mother's daughter. She ran too once, looking for freedom, for a place to belong. Promise me you'll choose for yourself. Not for me, not for them, for you." That night, Lily packed a small bag. She left a note for Eleanor. "Thank you for loving me, but my heart's already chosen." She slipped out before dawn, the world quiet and silver with mist. She walked miles, following the back roads, memory and hope guiding her feet. The sun rose over Willow Creek as she reached the Carter farmhouse, her heart thudding with fear and anticipation. She paused on the porch, listening to the sound of Ben's laughter inside, the clatter of Jamie's cereal bowl. She knocked once, twice. The door swung open, and there they were. Ben, sleep-rumpled and stunned, Jamie with tears streaming down his face as he launched himself into her arms. "Are you home for good?" Jamie asked, voice muffled in her shoulder. Lily nodded, words tangled in her throat. "I'm home, if you'll have me." Ben smiled, eyes shining. "We never stopped." Word spread through the town by noon. Lily was back, and her decision was made. Some gossiped, some cheered, but most simply nodded understanding at last. That family was something you built, not something you inherited. Eleanor arrived later that day, alone. She hugged Lily tight, whispering, "I'll always be here if you need me." She left a box inside, photos of Rose, letters written but never sent, and the deed to a small trust in Lily's name. "For your future, wherever you choose to make it." That night, the Carters sat on the porch, watching fireflies dance over the fields. Lily leaned against Ben, Jamie's hand in hers. The storm that had brought her to their door years ago felt like a distant memory, replaced by the quiet certainty of belonging. But as the summer night deepened, headlights flared on the distant road. A black car slowed by the mailbox, pausing long enough for a shadowy figure to watch the farmhouse before vanishing into the dark. Lily's choice may have sealed her future, but the past, it seemed, was not quite finished with her yet. Who or what was still searching for Lily? The answer, when it came, would shake Willow Creek to its core once more. The world had changed since Lily made her choice. News of her return to the Carters' farmhouse spread through Willow Creek faster than the first green shoots of spring. The town, once fractured by suspicion and scandal, now felt the first stirrings of healing, though old wounds still ached. For Lily, every day back with Ben and Jamie was a small act of recovery. She helped with chores, packed lunches, and wrote her name, her chosen name, on school forms with careful pride. But the rest of her story, the one stamped on legal documents and whispered through the grapevine, couldn't be erased so easily. The Rowans, stung by her decision, retreated to their estate. Eleanor sent letters, warm, loving, never resentful, inviting Lily to visit, reminding her that family could stretch to fit the shape of a heart. Lily answered each one in her own hand, telling her grandmother about school, friends, and the small joys of ordinary days. But Willow Creek itself needed a different kind of healing. The media came and went, their stories leaving behind more questions than answers. Some townsfolk still looked at Ben with doubt, wondering if he'd overstepped, if he'd taken something that wasn't his. Others brought casseroles, signed cards, and dropped off books for Lily and Jamie. The Carter mailbox was always full. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Ben called a meeting at the community center. He stood before the crowd, voice steady but humble. "I didn't plan any of this. I just tried to do what was right for a child who needed help. But I know there are some here who think I should have done more, or less, or something different. I can't change the past. All I can do is keep choosing to love my family, however it's come together." He paused, looking at Lily and Jamie in the front row, two kids who had lost so much, and yet now, somehow, had each other. "If we're going to move forward, it'll be together. We can't keep waiting for someone else to fix things or forgive first." A hush fell. Then Mrs. McAllister, once the loudest voice of suspicion, stood up. She cleared her throat, eyes shining. "Ben Carter, this town owes you more than we can say. You gave that girl a home when no one else would. You reminded us what community means. If there's forgiveness to be had, let's start with ourselves." Others rose: Tom from the hardware store, Mrs. Dupree from the school, the sheriff. Each offered a story, a memory, a promise to help. By night's end, a plan had formed. A town potluck, a mural for the school, a community garden dedicated to second chances. Hope was contagious. But not all wounds heal in the open. Late one night, Ben found Lily sitting on the porch, staring at the moon. "Do you think people will ever really forget?" she asked, her voice small. Ben sat beside her. "They might not. But they'll remember other things too. The way you helped Jamie with his reading, the way you played piano at the summer picnic, the way you stayed, even when you could have left." Lily nodded, a quiet acceptance settling in. "I want to help. I want to make this place better, for everyone." And so she did. She volunteered at the library, started a reading club for younger kids, and helped Jamie organize a fundraiser for the local animal shelter. She visited Eleanor once a month, building a new kind of bridge between the Carters and the Rowans. Each time she returned to the farmhouse, she felt lighter, as if she were finally letting go of the fear that had shadowed her since that stormy night. The real test of forgiveness, though, came from an unexpected source. One afternoon, a battered pickup rumbled into the Carter driveway. A tall, thin man stepped out, Lily's Uncle Charles, the one who'd argued against her staying with Ben, the one who'd always seemed cold and unreachable. He looked older, tired, but his eyes were softer than Lily remembered. "I came to apologize," he said, voice rough. "I thought I was protecting my family. Turns out I was protecting the wrong things." He turned to Ben. "You did what I couldn't. You gave her a chance to choose. Thank you." Ben shook his hand, firm and forgiving. "She chose all of us in the end. There's room here if you want it." Charles nodded, blinking back tears. "I'd like to try." From that day forward, Charles became a quiet fixture in their lives. He came to birthday parties, planted tomatoes in the garden, and even helped Jamie build a treehouse. The Rowans and the Carters, once separated by loss and fear, were slowly stitched together by the small, stubborn acts of ordinary kindness. That summer, the whole town gathered for the dedication of the new community mural. It stretched along the side of the school, a wild swirl of color showing kids of every background, hands joined, beneath a stormy sky that opened into sunlight. At the center stood three figures, Ben, Jamie, and Lily, smiling out at the world with hope. Peggy, the oldest resident, spoke at the ceremony. "A family's not about blood. It's about who stands with you in the storm and who stays with you after." Lily reminded us all that sometimes the lost ones are the ones who help us find ourselves. Lily was asked to say a few words. She stood, hands shaking, and looked out at the crowd, her family, her friends, her town. "Thank you for letting me belong. Thank you for giving me a place to call home. I promise to spend my life trying to give that gift back to anyone who needs it." The applause was long and loud, echoing off the mural and out into the fields. For the first time, Lily felt the knot of fear in her chest loosen for good. In the months that followed, Willow Creek blossomed. The community garden was planted, the reading club grew, and the summer picnic became an annual celebration of second chances. Ben found a new, rhythmless, haunted, more open. Jamie thrived, proud to call Lily his sister. Eleanor visited often, her health improving with each trip. Even Charles, once the most lost of them all, found a measure of peace. One golden evening, as fireflies drifted over the porch, Lily sat with Ben and Jamie, watching the sky. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't knocked on your door that night?" she asked. Ben smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "I try not to, because whatever path brought you here, it's the right one. We're family, and that's all that matters." Lily leaned her head on his shoulder, Jamie's hand in hers. "Thank you for choosing me." Ben squeezed her hand. "Thank you for choosing us back." The next morning, as the town awoke to a new day, a letter arrived from the Rowans' lawyer. Lily's inheritance had come through not as a burden, but as a blessing. The money would go to scholarships, park improvements, and help for families in need. The town that once feared change now embraced it. On the anniversary of her arrival, the town gathered again beneath the mural. This time, Lily read from a slip of paper. "We all get lost sometimes. But if you keep moving forward, if you let people in, and if you're brave enough to hope, you can find your way home. And maybe, just maybe, you can help someone else find theirs too." The crowd cheered, but it was the quiet smiles, the clasped hands, and the sun breaking over the storm-battered fields that said the most. Redemption wasn't a single act, but 1,000 small, stubborn choices to love, forgive, and begin again. As dusk settled, Ben, Lily, and Jamie stood together, looking out over a town transformed not by a single miracle, but by the slow, bright work of hearts turned toward one another. And somewhere, beneath the old oak tree, a silver feather pendant gleamed in the last light, a reminder that every storm, somehow, can lead you home. A year had passed since that final storm, since Lily Carter, once a lost girl with a faded feather pendant, chose her own family and changed Willow Creek forever. Morning sunlight spilled over the farmhouse porch, catching the laughter of Lily and Jamie as they raced each other through dew-wet grass. The world felt lighter, the shadows of those uncertain nights now softened by time and forgiveness. Ben watched them from the kitchen window, coffee in hand, marveling at how much could change in a single year. Lily's story had become part of the town's story. People still whispered about the miracle girl, the heiress who'd chosen love over legacy. But the whispers carried a different note now, one of pride, not suspicion. The Carters' home was always busy. Classmates stopping by for homework help, neighbors dropping off fresh eggs, even the sheriff's wife bringing over a pie, just because. The town had learned to let go of old fears, replacing them with something stronger, a shared sense of hope. The Rowan family, once distant and formidable, had become unlikely friends. Eleanor visited every Sunday, her laughter echoing through the kitchen as she and Lily baked bread together, hands dusted with flour and hearts lighter than they'd been in years. Charles, humbled by loss and change, helped Ben fix the fence that spring. His business acumen now turned to restoring the community. What began as a battle for custody had ended in a truce, one built not on court orders, but on forgiveness. The biggest change, though, was in Lily herself. She moved with a confidence that belied her years, her eyes bright and open to the world. She led the school's reading club, organized food drives, and played her violin for the town festival. People who once saw only a mystery now saw a leader, a friend, a daughter of Willow Creek. But the town's transformation didn't stop with the Carters. Inspired by Lily's journey, Willow Creek launched a scholarship fund for foster children, renovated the community center, and opened its doors to families in need. The pain of the past had become the seed for something new, just as Ben had once hoped, as he sat up late by the window, watching the storm clouds break. On the anniversary of Lily's arrival, the town gathered at the square for a celebration. Tables brimmed with food, children darted between booths, and old rivalries seemed to vanish in the summer air. At the heart of it all, Lily stood on a makeshift stage, Jamie at her side, her violin tucked under her chin. She played a song that sounded like rain and sunlight, sorrow and hope woven together. When she finished, the crowd erupted in applause. Ben, standing at the edge of the crowd, felt tears sting his eyes, not from grief, but from the overwhelming gratitude of a life remade. Principal Dupree called Lily and Ben to the front, presenting them with a plaque carved from local cedar, for courage in the face of the unknown and the love that makes a family. Lily took the microphone, her voice steady. "A year ago I was lost. I didn't know who I was or where I belonged, but Ben and Jamie showed me that family is more than blood. It's who stands with you when the storm comes. And this town, you all helped me find my way home. Thank you for giving me a second chance." The sun slipped lower, painting the square in gold. Neighbors lingered, sharing stories and laughter as the evening cooled. The Carters walked home together beneath a sky washed clean by the day's joy. That night, as Ben tucked Jamie and Lily into bed, he paused in the doorway, watching them drift toward sleep. He thought of all the storms they'd weathered, the fear, the uncertainty, the nights spent wondering if love would be enough. And he knew, finally, that it was. Lily lay awake a little longer, the feather pendant cool against her skin. She traced its edge, remembering the girl she'd been and the family she'd found. She whispered a promise to the darkness, to always choose hope, to always believe in the goodness of people, and to give others the same chance she'd been given. Outside, a gentle rain began to fall, not a storm, but a blessing, soft, steady, and full of promise. Willow Creek would never forget the girl who arrived on a stormy night, or the father and son who opened their door. Their story had become part of the town's foundation, a reminder that even the darkest nights can end in dawn, and that love, quiet, steadfast, and brave, can transform not just a family, but an entire community. If this story moved you, share it with someone who believes in second chances. And remember, every new dawn brings another chance to begin again.